Boy, you're a timely guest because news is breaking. About 15 minutes ago, the NCAA issued a show cause order and a 1-year suspension from the NCAA Committee on Infractions on my neighbor across the way, Jim Harbaugh. And they said it was because he violated. It's all for what was going on during the COVID dead period in 2021. This has nothing to do.
This is not the Connor Stallions investigation. This is a separate one.
Right.
Which, remember, like, he was suspended earlier in last season for that. That was the self-sanctions that Michigan had done.
The 3 games to start the season.
It wasn't the 3 games on the back end that the Big Ten punished him for that was related to the signal stealing. This, the one that the NCAA Committee on Infractions handed down today, which is a 4-year show cause, which basically means if somebody tried to hire Jim Harbaugh, it would be much harder to do it. At least if somebody in the NCAA world tried to hire Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is now the coach of the Chargers. He just won a national title. I don't think Jim Harbaugh has any interest in coaching anywhere in college football anytime soon, probably again.
So then why do it?
It's the NCAA. They're going to finish up with whatever they started, and they feel like they have to. They have no power in this one, really. They can shame Jim Harbaugh, and that's the extent of it.
Well, what is the extent of what he did, based on what you know? I know, again, this is like old news, and
so some of the stuff. It's funny because Herm Edwards, who's now works in TV and left ASU. He also had recruiting violations from the COVID dead period when you weren't supposed to be contacting recruits, and there was a lot of very specific rules into that time that they were operating around. And Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, the NCAA felt like was also believed that they were also operating in the red. Now, on top of that, Jim Harbaugh didn't cooperate with them, so he had level 2 violations, but they felt like he was misled them, and so in that regard, it becomes
that's the show
1.
cause. That's the level
that becomes a level 1.
Raised up.
Level 1 is more significant in the NCAAs than the level 2.
Right. His lawyer, Harbaugh's lawyer, Tom Mars, put out a statement. I think just as you were walking in the door here. Quote, saying, the way I see it from Coach Harbaugh's perspective, today's COI decision is like being in college and getting a letter from your high school saying you've been suspended because you didn't sign the yearbook. If I were in Coach Harbaugh's shoes and had an $80 million contract as head coach of the Chargers, I wouldn't pay any attention to the findings of a kangaroo court which claims to represent the principles of the nation's most flagrant repeat violator of the federal antitrust laws. So that's the answer from the Mars law firm.
Yeah, Harbaugh has a good lawyer in Tom Mars. Tom Mars has battled at the NCAA on a lot of fronts over the years. So I'm not surprised that he came out pretty forcefully on that. I know that there was a lot of frustration from the Harbaugh camp on some of the things that the NCAA tried to, in terms of timetable and how they were handling some of these investigations.
Yes.
It's messy. It really is. I mean, just the practicality purposes, the 4-year show cause, again, he won a national title. He's not going back. Like, show cause or not, he wasn't going back. I mean, it just, I don't know. It's not the, like, the thing that you'd be more concerned if you're Michigan is on the signal stealing investigation, because that's tied to your current sitting head coach
and
now.
and the future potential years of the program. And so this comes on the heels of your colleagues at ESPN, Dan Murphy and Pete Thamel, getting a copy of the draft.
Yes.
Of the
it's not the final
listing of allegations that
right. It's a draft.
Down.
Yeah, and I think
how does a draft get out, Bruce?
How does a draft get out? I know the Athletic has talked to some folks about it too. The people on that side of it, I think I don't want to say they want to get their side out in front of the news, but I think that sometimes happens. I mean, because why would it? How else would it get out?
So then, where is it going? Let's tie this off, if you will. And it has nothing to do with me not wanting to talk about it. I mean, I had Dan Murphy on for 20+ minutes talking about it on Monday. It's just there's a new season coming out, and I'd like to hit that a little bit with you. But where does this rest right now with Chiron Moore, Michigan, and how this goes back and forth with an NCAA that just put a show cause out for potentially show purposes, on this day? Where does this go, Bruce?
I think it's one of the issues that the NCAA had relating to Chiron Moore was deleted text messages. Now, was it a damning allegation in there that it was going to reach a level 1 status, or right now it's level 2 from our understanding.
And our understanding is he erased those text messages on the day the Stallions thing popped.
Yeah, so it looks really bad. And
right,
I
but
think
they got it back, and then he did in fact hand those text messages in. They are in receipt of those text messages.
I think they have them. Yes.
Right. So they've seen what the conversations were that he deleted.
Yeah. Now, whether it's innocuous or not, I think the hard part for Michigan on this, at least the people at Michigan now, is just the optics of it have been messy. Now, the practicality of it, to me, as we sit here, whether they, and I don't know if it's going to get to this point, whether the NCAA is going to try to redact a national title that happened and everybody saw it. The other thing that happened after it was Charlie Baker, who's the new head of the NCAA, came out and said Michigan won, quote, fair and square. I mean, those were his words. So, like anything else, it's really just kind of like a big pile of stuff that the NCAA drops out there for everybody, and people believe out of it what they want. I mean, on one hand, I think you're going to have a lot of folks who are going to go, you know what? That's why Jim Harbaugh left. He cheated and he got ahead of the posse and left. And I think all these stories, whether it's the one today, which I think people will conflate and go, oh yeah, that's right. It's not that story. And then that's not that investigation, I should say. And then there's the other part of this where I think because we're in this different era of the NCAA, this is not like the Reggie Bush, USC, NCAA sanctions day. It's certainly not the day of like Yahoo's big investigation into Miami 20 years ago. It's just like right now, I think people look at it and say, okay, you have NIL, you have all the other things that are changing around the sport that have changed how we look at the sport. I mean, right now you're going to have the green dot, helmet in college football. So in terms of the communication, I'm not saying people won't still be signaling because you still have to signal stuff to the perimeter, bless you. But there's just a big change in all this. And I don't think people are going to get too bogged down when the games happen with this. Again, Chiron Moore, basically Michigan had a head coach for, half the Saturdays, right? And he was there in practice and everything else being Jim Harbaugh. But I think all that last year, I don't know how much more damning it's going to get out of it. Just in a practical sense.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.